Good morning. This is going to be devotional number 386. And today's date is January 22nd, 2018. Today I thought we would look at the subject of anger or the wrath of God. And in doing so, I'd like us to look at the following 3 points. 1, God's anger is sinless. God's anger is justified. And number 3, God's anger brings him glory. And anger, or the wrath of God, is one of God's attributes, one of his many infinite attributes that reflect or enable us to see and to know more about his infinite, awesome character. And we have to recognize that God is amazingly kind to the human race in revealing himself through the Bible. If we think about it, it's astounding that he would give us so much information just in one volume. And if we did not have the Bible, we would actually know very little about God. Even though, as the Bible reveals, we can see the beautiful creation that God has made, and we can understand from that creation his infinite power and wisdom and majesty. Now, when we speak about the subject of God's anger, this is something that people really don't want to hear about. Unsaved, natural man detests God, detests his word, because they are in rebellion against God. But the reason we want to speak about God's wrath is because it's an integral part of the true gospel of grace. It's an integral part of the Bible itself. And we also recognize that God's wrath is just, and it is actually what a true believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, one who is one of God's elect, is actually saved from. We read, for example, in Jeremiah 10:10, this statement, "But Jehovah is the true God. He is the living God and an everlasting King. At his wrath the earth shall tremble, and the nations shall not be able to abide his indignation." We find a similar statement in the book of Zephaniah, in Zephaniah 3, verse 8. "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith Jehovah, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." There are many verses like these in the Old Testament that lead some to make the false assertion that the God of the Old Testament is a God of wrath, whereas the Lord Jesus Christ in the New Testament is a God of love. Of course, this idea is biblically unsound. The triune God of the Bible is as much a God of love as he is a God of justice. And we read this, for example, in Malachi 3:6. "For I am Jehovah, I change not. Therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed." Now, we want to also look at the matter of God's anger being justified. Is God justified in his anger? The answer from the Bible is definitely yes. Genesis 18:25b poses this rhetorical question. shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And in Romans 3, 5b through 6, we also find a similar question, which God then goes further to answer as well. Is God unrighteous, who taketh vengeance? I speak as a man. God forbid. For then how shall God judge the world? Acts 17:31 speaks of our current day of judgment, which began on May 21, 2011, in which the entire world is under the fierce wrath of God, as Christ is indeed ruling with a rod of iron, because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man whom he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurance unto all men, in that he hath raised him from the dead. At the same time, we have understood that God is testing in our present day all who profess to be God's elect, to see if they are indeed gold, silver, and precious stones, or merely wood, hay, and stubble that will not be able to withstand the intense heat of God's wrath. John 12:48 likewise reveals, he that rejecteth me and receiveth not my words hath one that judgeth him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. We have understood that God's judgment process began at his own house. The end-time institutional churches and denominations, as we read in both Hebrews 10:30 as well as in 1 Peter 4:17, showing that God is no respecter of persons. Hebrews 10:30 affirms, for we know him that hath said, vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord. And again, the Lord shall judge his people. Also, 1 Peter 4:17 teaches, for the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? The third point I'd like to make is that God's anger brings him glory. In Isaiah 42:8, we read, I am Jehovah. That is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images. Ultimately, everything that God does is for his own glory. And that is certainly true of his anger, which is being presently poured out and will eventuate in the annihilation of the wicked, along with our present cursed universe. Romans 9:22 asserts, what if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? In Jeremiah 25:17 through 18, we read the Old Testament parallel of 1 Peter 4:17. Then took I the cup at the Lord's hand and made all the nations to drink, unto whom Jehovah had sent me, to wit, Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, and the kings thereof, and the princes thereof, to make them a desolation, and astonishment, and hissing, and a curse, as it is this day.